All right. Welcome, everybody, to our afternoon technology session. My name is Waltraud Ernst, and I have the great pleasure and honor to announce Ruth Hagengruber, our next speaker. And Ruth Hagengruber will speak to the topic Out of the Box into the Blue, drafting an epistemology of a post-human interrelatedness. Ruth Hagengruber is known by many of you, I guess. She is the chair of philosophy, the head of philosophy department at Paderborn University, and she's the founder and director of the Center for the Research on the history of women philosophers and scientists. And she has contributed elaboratively and widely to this field, but I want to mention a just published work, the St. Petersburg manuscripts of Émilie du Châtelet, and which she co-edited. And her work on Émilie du Châtelet is widely acclaimed. This important thinker of the Enlightenment, of the early Enlightenment. I want to give you the word now, Ruth, because you have published so much, I think, but you need the space to speak.
Yeah,
the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Waltraud. And but nonetheless, I think, and even this symposium gives me the opportunity. So I'm well known or best known for the history of women philosophers and my work on Émilie du Châtelet. So I'm initially professor here for philosophy of economics and technology. And this is also why this conference focuses on this topic. And so what I'm talking about is based on, let's say, on research that I'm doing right now, really for about 40 years, and it goes back till my PhD. But I'm very happy. Thank you very much for coming. And it is often like the title is a bit different, but it doesn't matter. The title is because it is written wrongly in our book, and better the titles are written wrongly for the people who have organized it than for the people who are our guests. So the title is Out of the Box into the Green and the Blue, but we will see. Yes, it is written differently. Okay, and I would like to focus on perhaps a different point to a certain extent, but of course relate to what we have heard up to now. So I simply start. We live in challenging times. We have heard this several times now. And I like to insist to say that not only white old men, this is not true, and not only European, fight back the culture of diversification. They will not stop, however, this, I'm convinced, the flow of time, not because we want it, that they will not be able to do, but, and this is a thesis of my paper, they will not be able to stop that, what is in the development right now, because there is a new kind of epistemology evolving that emerges from our new information world. The path it takes changes our understanding of the world, of science and human values. And this new epistemology, I hold, is irreversible. Our knowledge will change in the shape of information technology and the information distribution at hand in any place and context. I sketch how our life will change in the life of this big data information and reflect with you how our attitude towards our understanding and knowledge of the world will change. In doing so, I propose that binary ontologies and semantics will vanish. We are going towards a new understanding of science while we move towards a new understanding of interrelatedness. But what is now, what kind of box is that we want to go out? the fundaments of the European knowledge culture can be traced back to Aristotle. But again, it is not limited to Europe nor Aristotle. I simply mention him because his name is, always brought in context with that, but he's not the only one who framed this kind of thinking. This kind of knowledge in the box is spread all over the world. It is important to understand that it is not a unique European phenomenon. So what is this knowledge in the box? Aristotle's organization of knowledge was quite clear. There is a part and a whole, and the whole is more than the parts. Moreover, Aristotle's ontology also defines the end of each entity. And why is it able to do so? This ontology, determined by the fact that each entity is a part of a whole, each part is consequently determined by its end in being this part of the whole. That is, in regard of what we become, the ends of our activities are already and essentially defined, being part of something. Aristotle defines a society alike. There is a house, and this house belongs to a man, and its parts are a wife and a slave and children. The community is a collection of men, and of course, more than the sum of the parts. And that is that this community defines the true and the right and so on, and the existence of all the parts in the box of the whole. In the scientific sphere, this hierarchy of entities forms the tree of knowledge, of course. It defines the function and end and determines the right way, how to proceed and the right position for any entity. Each plant and animal and person is pressed in its box, and in various boxes, of course. And for all the boxes we are in, this is relevant what I have said. And the ontology of the boxes defines the place in the hierarchy of knowledge. This is where our science is based upon. And to understand the essential determination of any entity is to understand where it is part of. And there is no way out, striving to be different, of course. So the cherry trees ends in bearing cherries, the knife's function is to cut, and so on. But as I have said, it is not only Aristotle, but it is a common view and a common thinking, and it's not only deprived, let's say, to Europe. As I mentioned, this view, however, was always subjected to critique. It is not that now only in the 21st century we are starting to criticize this box thinking. Nevertheless, it became a dominant view in science and formed cultural habits and formed also our technology, as we have heard already this morning. 500 years ago, however, the anti-Aristotelian movement became so strong, and for a certain period, really it had the impression that this box thinking went down. Why? In Aristotle, the ontological architecture of parts and wholes was built and combined with visual impressions. In that period, perspective, however, changed. And Aristotle, who concluded also from the vision that the earth is in the middle of the universe as everything is falling upon it, and thus that it is the center of all aggregated parts that tend to the earth. And then came Copernicus, who turned simply the perspective around and jumped out of the box. And this jumping out of the box from the Copernican turn had many consequences also in the social field. Everything could also be seen differently. The earth was no longer in the center of the universe, and women protested to be reduced to be the seed sac of procreation. There is this famous woodcut scratched in the year 1502 by Hans Baldung Green, who was a student from Albrecht Dürer, that shows Phyllis riding on Aristotle. What means, and this engraving and woodcut is spread all over Europe. It has been reprinted 1,000 times, and it's showing that now the women are riding on the men. And this is also the era where we have the books that are written on women's excellence over men and so on. So, of course, we also know that Plato designed a different epistemology and that Aristotle held his box epistemology against Plato. From the point of view of the rewriting the history, it is therefore interesting to understand how the knowledge generation is presented by Plato. Because Plato analogizes knowledge growth with childbirthing. And it is exactly Diotima who rebukes the young Socrates to understand the world as he does, to love and steer and strive for objects. She says, this is all nonsense. What you have to understand to get a knowledge of the world is to understand the intellectual growth, knowledge emerging from, in the dialectical way, of course, from the diversities. And so to overcome the sense confinements. Nothing is as it seems. Everything is much more as it seems, and nothing is determined. There are these wonderful, I have to close my window. So there are these wonderful examples from Plato, but I can't go into it. So in Diotima, knowledge is defined as an emerging process of knowing. What at first look seems contradictory is the best basis, she says, to start to strive and to overcome differences by creating something new out of this contradiction or this diversity. This creative process, so Diotima, is the world's way to eternity. The Renaissance now is famous exactly for its critique of Aristotle, while Plato and Diotima became the idols of the epoch. Only to add that this also contributed to a massive change in the cultural acknowledgement at that time of women and sciences themselves, because science has completely changed. You know, the scholastic time was over, and it is absurdly that today in the 19th and 20th century reinstalled its idea of science again upon Aristotle, while the Platonist idea of emerging knowledge has been so successful in its time and in the Renaissance. So the goodness is no longer defined now by the fulfillment of function. The good is not defined by the completion of the end, but from a perspective of intellectual growth, overcoming diversities and sense confinements. What we know and the extent to which we know or how we access information has considerably changed. So why do I claim that the new technology of information is a further step in this direction? So to reach this goal. So the question is this growth of information also a change of knowledge? And how could that be? It is because the binary model of cognition is replaced, and this is perhaps a response to what Waltraud said this morning. There is this binary model of cognition and recognition in our technology. This is true. However, technology does not make up our mind. So although information technology today is based on this old box ontology, it is essentially binary. Of course, it is. But we are, as you all know, we are heading towards a quantum-driven algorithm and so on. And also these, as the quantum technology works with a different kind of aggregation of knowledge, also this will change, I think. So let's talk about this old and the new model of knowledge. The former relation of our understanding, thus, was fixed on the observer and the observed. And this is also a reason for this binary structure of our ontologies. Here is the mind, and here is the nature. It resulted also in the actor and the acted upon. The information we have today interrupts this binary scheme. A third element, just as constant as we and the natural world, shapes our world of knowledge. In the world of the diotima, we see it as a child grown out of a constructive mind. So I don't know what that means, that they are now hammering and so on. Perhaps these are the white men who are hammering against them. So beyond the observer, now we have a different ontological situation. We have nature, we have the mind looking upon the world in this traditional binary arrangement, but now we have a third element between us, which is an element of knowledge, an element of knowledge that also is part of our knowledge gaining process. This third element changes our knowledge relation, which until then had only existed in two components. And it is still created by us now a merely independent part of information, not of knowledge, but of information. We are no longer the single actor and news provider in this world. This knowledge generation by the information machine attacks, therefore, not only human superiorism, but also many conventional beliefs that we have created and founded in our world of knowledge hierarchies. Nonetheless, it is true that this machine is, as Waltraud pointed out, based on these conventional ideas following. But the point is, and the point I would like to make is that we are now three very different knowledge producers. We are getting far from the box knowledge, I think, as we are overwhelmed by information. Looking for wholes and parts can no more fulfill that job. We discover the world via analogies. These analogies reveal astonishing structures and environments, and surprisingly bind together what never have been put in one knowledge box so far. We learn to see the world in a different way, as the elements of information provided for us add two things. First, as said above, it interrupts the conventional binary knowledge construction. Secondly, it is not strictly subjected to the knowledge box system, although it once emerged from it. Its algorithms, as we know, act partly independently, and connections and similarities, sometimes the most stupid and surprising ones, create new entities. Following from this, we are enforced to proceed differently than we did before. We discover parallels and notice overlaps among things we judged being repellent and contrarian in the box world. All is turned upside down and perspectives become multidimensional. I also could hold that it is exactly therefore why we are questioning today questions as we do about, different entities, diversities, and so on. Questions and answers are posed and expressed differently. The question is no longer if something is part of something. Instead of a hierarchical box-pressed thinking, we perceive differences that could not be pressed into boxes. A reductive ontology is replaced by a growing and expanding epistemology that will change our science, as difference and diversity became now a new ideal to act as knowledge resource. And this is important. So having so much knowledge, and when knowledge becomes this ideal, it is important that this striving for knowledge has a new knowledge resource and reservoir. And this is a kind of this theory that I say this is the reason why now we are observing differences. We are going for differences and diversities. Out of the box into the green and the blue we jump, and we re-ontologize our understanding of nature and the social world. The information providing machines are not only now relevant partners in our lives. We do no longer fear to have to compete with it. When we calculate, we do not compete with calculation machines. Our task is to move forward in shaping our understanding of the world on the basis of this new epistemology that is based on the fact that diversity is the cause of well-being and flourishing. So this new epistemology is a triangular epistemology that nests us differently in nature and society than we have perceived before. Algorithmic methods, new ways of knowledge aggregation, and changing assemblages of knowledge clusters re-ontologize our world. And with a simple example, a very simple example, I'd like to illustrate that. Take an apple as a part of a fruit box. In the part-whole ontology, we are told that chromium is a part of an apple. It is also calcium, potassium, and phosphorus. These are all minerals that are found in the apple. What this ontology of boxes not shows us is that chromium is also relevant to your health, because health is in a completely different box. So this, interchange of box knowledge is the new challenge, and I think we come closer to that. It is difficult.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. 3 more minutes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So this is why what I say is diversity becomes now a value, and overlooking differences and shaping a new content out of it is what adds something to the world, namely new insights. We are getting new insights, but this was now the main point. Yeah. So you have to understand that the more you know, the more you understand that you are now connected to the rocks and to the plants and to the apples and to the soil and to the water and so on. If you go out, we are forced to jump out of our boxes as we see that chromium and the minerals have a very different life in very different boxes. And to understand and to learn how things in the world are connected, we have now these instruments to understand. And this is why these instruments are so valuable to instruct us now to learn diversities and to overcome the limits of the knowledge that we have cultivated for such a long time. So the more extensive and diverse the basic of our knowledge is, the more comprehensive is what we know. Neither world can picture truth, but the new one is, as I think, a bit more truth-like. So this new third and triangle world. So I finish here with these words. I will say that these new methodologies will change our world, the economy, education, medicine. The new goal in the science is now individualizing and diversifying needs. Now we establish the values of quality instead of quantity in economics. You don't need much, but you have to get the right thing. And to get the right thing for your needs, you have to have as much knowledge as you need. And it is important to know if it is in India, in the Amazons, and if it is only known by one people that is consisting of out of 5 persons. So we de-individualize and re-identify. We are part of the knowledge structure and part of the universe of the green and the blue. It changes our ideas of superiorities of man's world and epistemic violence. So I think the turn from a primary hierarchy and function-driven into a primarily knowledge-driven ontology comes along with an ontology of mutual interrelations, flexible in relation of what we see, stable in relation of what we know, and nesting everything and everyone as best as possible to a place of its utmost flourishing existence. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ruth, for this great talk from Aristotle to the future, an optimistic view into a triangular epistemology. And please, if you have any questions. And I want to introduce Sabine Thürmel. Sabine Thürmel will speak to social machines in a data-driven world. And Sabine Thürmel is an independent researcher and lecturer at Karl von Linde Academy at the Technical University of Munich in Germany. Sabine, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much. I do look forward to you, Waltraud, supporting me and presenting my little video, which gives my talk, because I'm now not at home, and I think this will be more enjoyable, more understandable for you.
All right, then I'll try to start.
Waltraud, do you hear anything? I don't.
Oh, I hear very well. Does everybody hear the talk?
No, it's not. We don't hear anything, I think.
Oh, how can I connect the audio of my system to the floor? I don't know really.
I think somewhere in settings there should be something like computer audio or choosing computer audio.
In the Zoom settings?
Yes, I think so.
Thank
but
you.
I'm not sure. That's how they did it in a workshop, but I haven't done it myself. So,
tell me again, what should I do?
I think. Okay, let me see.
Lautsprecher of telephone audio? No.
Computer audio should be the right one, I think.
But it is computer audio.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. What can I do?
Yeah.
Excuse me, if I can help. So where you see the microphone, next to microphone, there is an arrow.
Yes.
Press it, and you see audio settings.
Yes.
Yeah. So then from there, you should be able to change your audio setting.
I try.
Enhanced by the technical.
Can you hear now?
Serve as tools to the human.
Yes. Yes. If you put it a bit louder, yes.
I will start again.
Das war jetzt haben wir das untypisch. Draußen hat es gehämmert, während die musste nur jetzt sagst, dein Mikro, ich will meine Keynote noch mehr aufnehmen.
Ruth, stell mal bitte stell dich mal stumm.
Weil sie Question and Answers gemacht hat. Ich habe nur einen Text abgekürzt.
Social systems towards expert systems relying on the latest developments in the computational sciences. Currently, we find a wide variety of social machines on the web, supporting the original.
There is no more audio. Do others hear?
No, we don't.
Waltraud, you have to unmute yourself, because if not, we won't. And if you can make louder the volume at the bottom of the screen.
Digitally mediated human networks governed by AI and machine learning are also on the rise. They are shaping more and more of what we perceive, remember, plan, and do. This definition rightly stresses that human networks do not only offer a platform to build social networks or social relations among people, but are more and more governed by AI and machine learning. Following a smart and chat world, social machines may be understood as, quote, systems in which human and machine components make complementary contribution with respect to the performance of some larger joint process. And human intelligence is enhanced by technical components which serve as tools to the humans use. The deployment of big data technologies forms an integral part of the latest generation of such social machines. Big data-based predictive algorithms allow the focus to be shifted from reactive measures to proactive preventions. They are experimentally used in early warning systems, providing a continuous assessment of the not yet. In addition, scientific discovery, supported by deep learning, demonstrates how data-intensive science changes and accelerates explorative research processes by applying novel heuristics. Thus, in the data-driven world, medical diagnostics and treatment, as well as discovery, will increasingly profit from big data analytics. Authors like Kenneth Kuker wholeheartedly embrace this development. Quote, anything that requires highly specialized training, judgment, and decision-making under conditions of uncertainty will be done better by an algorithm than a human. End quote. One might even say that well-established forms of holding to a commonly shared perspective on reality will be disrupted by the current wave of AI technologies. One example is the use of computational techniques in computational psychiatry. This field aims to classify psychiatrist phenomena no longer according to the established model of diagnosis, but in novel, more fluid models of reduced cognitive, affective, social functions, where, quote, computational techniques facilitate the measurement of intrinsic processes that are otherwise not directly observable, end quote. Thus, computational psychiatry intends to provide transformative decision support systems, discarding established modes of characterizing disorders and replacing the social memory of medical specialists, at least in part, with new data and new correlations. Thus, social machines have evolved from technology-enabled social systems towards expert systems, relying on the latest developments in the computational sciences. Thank you for your interest.
Thank you, Sabine Thürmer, for this outline of computational possibilities. Oh, I'm sorry.